FBI Special Agent Kenneth Gray joining us. And Kenneth, we always appreciate your time here today. First off, has any more significant information come out about these retaliatory strikes, or have we largely been at a standstill for the majority of the morning?
So, Austin, we're starting to hear from both Iraq and Syria as to the number of injuries there. That Iraq has made the claim that there was 16 people that were killed and 25 that were wounded in these attacks. Syria has not provided any specific numbers, but they did say both civilians and soldiers were killed in these attacks. Iran has come out and has condemned the United States action here. But besides that, we're not really hearing specifics yet. We're waiting to hear from the Department of Defense as to how they did on this last go-around and when the next series of strikes will be conducted if there's a follow-up round. Whenever you do an attack like this here, you have to do a battle assessment to see how well you did against the targets that you had aimed for and determine whether or not you need to go back and hit some of those targets again, or if you can move on to another set of targets. And so I think the reason why we are not getting any specifics yet is that they are still doing conducting the battle assessment.
How long can an assessment like that take? Are we talking days, weeks, longer than that?
Normally hours, hours to days. And so I'm sure that by now they have a good feeling for how many targets that they actually hit, and that they will be ready to put forward additional targets or to go back and hit some of those targets again. So I think that that there has been sufficient time for them to make that assessment. It's just a matter of now briefing the American public, and the briefing may not occur before they launch a second round of attacks.
Right, and I do want to talk about any potential attacks in a moment here, but I also want to bring up this reporting from the Associated Press. Hussein al-Massawi, spokesperson for Harakat al-Najaba, one of the main Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, in an interview with the AP today in Baghdad, condemned the U.S. strikes, saying, Washington, quote, must understand that every action elicits a reaction. Ken, what type of reaction is an Iranian-backed militia in Iraq capable of?
Well, as you know, the U.S. forces that are over there in Jordan, in Iraq, in Syria, they've been under a sustained series of attacks since October. 165 attacks against U.S. interests there. And so I think it's more the same, more attacks on U.S. forces that are deployed out there. We have a lot of assets in the area. We have assets in Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, a lot of different areas that could be hit by proxies of Iran in that area. Or there's always the possibility that they could carry out attacks on U.S. interests elsewhere, such as the United States. But I think that the most likely place that they would hit would be a continuation of the attacks on forward-based troops there in the area.
When we talk about Massawi specifically, he said that the targeted sites in Iraq were mainly devoid of fighters and military personnel as well at the time of the attack. If that is true, in what ways could the U.S. and possibly other entities be keeping tabs on the people that may have avoided these strikes this time around?
Well, I think we telegraphed what we were intending to do, and some of these targets had been previously hit. And so it should not have been a surprise that some of the targets were hit again. As I say, some had been previously hit by the United States. And so when you give a heads up to the other side that you're going to hit their locations, don't be surprised if they're not sticking around waiting to be bombed or waiting to have missiles drop on them. So I think we would be better served for us to strike and then report, as opposed to report first and then strike.
I want to pull up this tweet from the Washington Times that reads, an Iraqi militia official on Saturday hinted at a desire to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East following retaliatory strikes launched by the U.S. against dozens of those sites in Iraq and Syria. So, do you see them sort of pulling back their rhetoric a little bit right now? Maybe perhaps this is somewhat of a cautionary stance, given that there very well could be more strikes in the future.
Yeah, it was Kataib Hezbollah, which was the Iranian-backed proxy that was in Iraq. They're the ones who said that they were done making their attacks on U.S. bases following the fact that they had killed a couple of U.S. Servicemen. And so this is not in response to, they've already been making these statements even before our strikes here last night. And so I think that they may realize that they may have gone too far in order and has had the United States done a strong retaliation here. We do not want to find ourselves in a regional conflict. Iran does not want itself to be in a regional conflict. So the efforts to try to de-escalate on both sides are important, but the United States felt that it was important for us to send a message that you cannot kill Americans without some type of response. And so despite the concern of this potentially becoming a regional conflict, the U.S. Still felt compelled to strike back after the attack on Tower 22.
I want to pull up yet another tweet, this one from U.S. CENTCOM, talking about operations taking place in the Red Sea. The entire tweet is cut off, but I'll read a little bit of what the Times of Israel is reporting on this exact situation. They say that the U.S. military's Central Command says that its forces shot down a drone over the Gulf of Aden yesterday and later conducted strikes against 4 Houthi UAVs that were being readied for launch. I believe in total we're talking about around 15 targets that were looked at today in total, Ken. What do you make of the timing of still seeing action taking place in the Red Sea as we're still in the middle of this, sifting through this news and sorting out what's taking place in Iraq and Syria?
So the Houthis are acting independent of the forces of Kataib Hezbollah and of the forces inside Syria. And Hezbollah itself. The Houthis are attacking any ships that are in the area. The United States and the UK both have conducted a series of attacks against Houthi installations, striking out at their UAV capabilities and at their missile capabilities and at some of their depot areas. And what it shows to me is that the Houthis are still able to be a problem in this region, despite the multiple strikes that have been made against their areas. And so it just shows the Houthis are still continuing on in their operations, independent of Iran, independent of the other forces that are part of the axis of resistance.
Before we wrap up here, looking ahead to any possible further strikes, what little information is out there about what the U.S. has said regarding, the continuation of their retaliation? I remember them saying the first strike, whenever you see the first thing happen, it would not be the last. What more do we know, if anything?
So I think that one thing we can say for sure is that I don't believe that the Biden administration is willing to carry out any attacks into Iran proper. So despite the calls by some members of Congress that we should be striking into Iran, I don't see that as happening in this next series of attacks. Instead, I think that you will see a continuation of targeting those militant forces in Iraq and in Syria to try to remove their capabilities of striking out against U.S. forces in that area. The types of attacks we saw last night, I think we'll see more of the same over the next couple of days.
All right. As always, Kenneth Gray joining us. We appreciate your time. Take care and have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you.